So welcome to today's webinar, which is on dash cams and should everybody have one. My name is Rob Hurd and I'm the chair and founder of the Older Drivers Forum. So a little bit of background so you know about me. I'm a retired police officer and I've been a police officer, or I was, for 30 years, and 27 of those was in the roads policing unit. So I've got a lot of knowledge about roads policing laws, which will become in use to us a little bit later on. So before we get started, this webinar is just one of several that we are running this week, and it's all about supporting Project Edward, it's a week of action called Fit for the Road. So Project Edward stands for Every Day Without a Road Death, and it is an annual UK-wide road safety campaign backed by the government, emergency services, highways agencies, road safety organisations, and British businesses. Now, shockingly, on average, 5 people a day are killed and around 150,000 people are injured on our roads in Great Britain. Unfortunately, 20% of all of those deaths are older drivers, which is why I'm running many of these to do with Older Drivers Forum. As older license holders are increasing every year, fatalities, unfortunately, for people aged 70 above is increasing and is expected to increase by 22% by 2040. So it's all about trying to raise our awareness and keep us safe. So I said to you I'd introduce our host for today, and I'm very, very honoured to introduce our host, which is going to be Valerie Singleton, OBE. Valerie is a trusted and well-known journalist, travel writer and TV presenter. Many of you remember her in Blue Peter, and who will not forget about the experiences that she had with the baby elephant causing chaos on the studio. So Valerie, over to you. Just need your camera on. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Rob, very much indeed. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Can never forget that baby elephant, can I? Well, over the next 90 minutes, you're going to learn and hear about absolutely everything to do with dashboard cameras. Well, more normally known by most people as dash cams. These very clever little kits are really getting easier and smaller to use. All you have to do is fit them to your windscreen and hey presto, they'll start recording the minute you turn the key on, and you don't even need any particular technical input to do that. So what is the purpose of a dash cam? I mean, if you're using one to tell tales on another driver, will the evidence be robust enough to bring a conviction? Where do you send your evidence, and who makes those decisions? What value do they really have for road safety? Well, in just a moment, we'll be hearing from someone called Bryn Brooker, who works for Next Base, and they actually make dash cams, and we're going to hear all about them. They're also, as it so happens, one of the promoters and sponsors of our Project Edward this year. A little later, we're going to be hearing from Kira Lee, who is a Reuters journalist. Kira very sadly lost her husband, Eddie, who was killed on the M4 by a motorbike. And we'll be hearing why Kira thinks that dash cam evidence is very, very important. We'll also be hearing from Chief Inspector Superintendent Andy Cox of Lincolnshire Police, who has described dash cams as an absolute lifesaver as far as crashes are concerned, a game changer. Our reporter, James Luckhurst, will be at the Avon and Somerset Police, and he's going to look at the practicalities of submitting and uploading the footage. And we'll also be playing you 5 clips, just recent cam footage that we've had in, and getting you to have a look at it and see what you think would be the appropriate outcome. Oh, by the way, do use the question and answers, won't you, that's down the side, because we're going to keep Bryn and Kira with us till the end of the webinar when we've had all our presentations and our interviews, and they're going to be answering the questions for us, whatever you like to put in. So get them in as quickly as you can. Right, it's time now to meet our very first guest. He's called Bryn Brooker. He works for Next Base. He's the marketing manager, and they make dash cams. So we're going to hear from Bryn all about dash cams, what they do, how they're made, and how you can use one. So time to hand over to you, Bryn.
Thanks, Valerie, and welcome everybody. Really excited to chat to everyone and looking forward to taking you through what is a dash cam. And actually, it's really interesting to see how many people have got a dash cam already and how many people are either looking to understand what they are and understand a bit more. Rob, if we'd just like to jump onto the next slide, then we'll start my presentation. So just so that everybody understands A dash cam is a small video recorder that goes in your windscreen, normally tucked up behind your rear view mirror. And essentially, it's your independent witness on the road. So while you're driving along, it's constantly recorded. It's also the main factor that differentiates a dash cam between from an action cam, for example, is it's got a G-force detector. So if there's an incident, a bump, that detector senses that jolt and automatically locks the file. Dash cams are being used more and more these days. Essentially, the main use or the main reason for that. Now we're jumping back and forth. Thanks, Rob. So dash cams record their loops in 1-minute files. So those files can be saved individually, shared easily, or played back to back as one big file. Typically, costs are from around £49 for an entry-level model, up to around the top of the range 4K dash cams at £249. The average price for the models that we sell is around £99. So essentially, people are using dash cams to prove that an accident's not their fault, an incident's not their fault. They also benefit from insurance discounts, and people understand these days that by having a dash cam, we're providing evidence to forces and removing dangerous drivers from the roads. There's also that extra benefit of you don't need to worry about taking down some of the details of the road name if you ever have an incident, because that data is stored. Dash cams typically know where they are and can provide you details of that. There's also the benefit of having parking protection now on newer models. And there is that sense that when you've got a dash cam, you do feel protected. It feels like you've got somebody there watching after you, because there is that independent witness in the vehicle all the time. And roughly 3.5 million dash cams are used on UK roads day in, day out. Just a little bit of history, if people are interested. We launched our first range in 2012, and we, as Nextbase, are the largest manufacturer in the world and in the UK. So we've got 83% market share. And as you can see, that it took a little while. In 2015 was the first dashcam prosecution, and over time, dashcams have become more and more accepted. Insurance companies accept them as proof of fault. That was around 2016. The police map, which we'll come and see, the dashcam portal, work on that started with us just before 2017. And now we're up to kind of present day 2020, 2021, where we've got 4K dashcams at super high resolution. This is just a quick slide on just the popularity of dashcams. There used to be something that people only saw 10 years ago. They were a niche product. Now you'll see them in every major newspaper. There's reviews in Which and T3 and things like that. It just shows how popular they've become. And here's a quick example. So what we're showing here is the dashcam or screen of what you get if you play back a Nextbase dashcam video. This is our software. And Rob, if you are able to press the play button in the bottom left, hopefully that's it, just above there, Rob. It's just floating around. There we go.
Unfortunately, Brendan, it doesn't seem like it wants to work.
It's not going to play with us. Anyway, the wonders of technology. What this does show is you've got a video in the center. That's giving you the evidence. But on top of that, you've got a lot more data, a lot more detail than just a video. Top right-hand corner, you get a Google map. And as I say earlier, that shows you the road name and number. So that's data that you can give to your insurance company or to the police should you need it. Down the bottom, you've also got your speed, your direction, and also there's G-force data down there as well, which will show you the force of that impact. Next slide, please, Rob. So, as I mentioned, one of the major benefits for dashcam owners are the insurance benefits. Most people recognise that having a dashcam means that you have evidence of what happened. Perhaps they don't realise that the claims for dashcam owners are processed faster. Typically, if you have dashcam evidence, a standard insurance claim can be resolved in about 5 working days. If you compare that to a non-video evidence claim, that can be on average of 3 or 4 weeks, but can go up to months, even years, if there's disputes over what happened, who said what, getting witness statements. And that's kind of a real additional benefit that perhaps a dashcam owner might not realise when they first buy it, but if they ever have to put in an insurance claim, you can instantly prove it wasn't your fault. And that's on top of some insurance savings that are available these days, and being able to, by proving it wasn't your fault, keep your no claims discount. And if you think about a hard-earned no claims discount, that might be up to 10, 20%. That over a number of years can add up to quite a lot of money as well. And the final thing I think around the insurance benefit is that we have seen crash for cash fraudsters where people deliberately stop in front of you, and having a dashcam, having that evidence to prove that they were trying to commit fraud there allows you to not have to pay out and not take that hit on your insurance. Something that we've been working very hard on in the last few years is the insurance side, and in fact we've launched our own insurance company. We now have the world's first dashcam insurance. It's Next-Based Insurance, where you can get savings of up to 30%, and about a third of our customers are paying less than £250 for fully comprehensive cover. That's all it's underwritten by AXA, Ageas, Viva and LV, and other insurance partners. And so that's really taking our drivers, which we know are safer drivers, and rewarding them for being a safer driver, having a dashcam. And also, this is something that I'm sure we'll touch on a lot today. I'll work on the National Dashcam Safety Portal. This has been going for a number of years now, 3 years for us. And I just want to share some statistics of how well it's been used. So there's been 70,000 plus uploads to the portal itself. And this is a portal where if you capture an incident of dangerous driving, it allows you to send that footage straight to the relevant police force so that they can action it. We did actually see a real high spike over lockdown period, where I think drivers thought they could get away with bad driving or worse driving. But we're looking at all of our statistics. Roughly 50% of all uploads resulted in some form of prosecution. So that can be from a simple warning letter all the way through to points, fines, and convictions. I think one of the biggest points for us on the Next-Based portal is, as well as being able to make the UK roads safer, which I think is clearly the biggest thing, it's saved 263,000 plus. It's 29 years worth of police time because it's a simple and quick process. The police can have the witness statement and the video straight away and decide whether to action it. So that's something we're really proud of, and something that we'll hear more from others later on. That's it. Any questions, please put them in the question boxes. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Bryn. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure there's going to be loads of questions after that. I mean, I found that fascinating. I can see quite a lot of benefits there, which is making me think I'm going to go and get one. So
thank you.
This webinar. I think I might be in touch with you. Right, let's look now. I'd That, of course, was Bryn Brooker, who's the marketing manager of Nextbase, as we understand that they make these wonderful machines. Now, let's look at the value of dash cams and how they can actually bring justice and how it can be done following a road traffic collision. Detective Chief Superintendent Andy Cox is Lincolnshire Police's Head of Crime and Investigation. He's also the National Police Chief's Council lead, looking at fatal collisions and the investigations for those. Now, yesterday, he joined up in Lincolnshire with one of the 3 road trips that have been laid on by Project Edward to tell Neil Barrett, our reporter, just how he feels that dash cams absolutely are a game changer for road safety.
Policing on its own cannot solve road danger. So we very much need, we're a small cog in the wheel in essence of road danger. So very much this is a collaborative issue, and none more so than working with the public. The police can't be everywhere all the time. We often hear that road policing resources aren't there, or there's not speed cameras perhaps where we need them on occasion. So whilst the police can't be everywhere all the time, the public can be. And I think therefore asking the public to report road crime, and I call it road crime for a purpose, it is crime rather than sort of traffic offences, which sometimes unfortunately it's referred to. But by getting the public to report the crimes that they see in terms of people's driving, I think gives us huge opportunity to increase the deterrence for drivers, because I think perhaps that dangerous driver, I'd always looked for, is the police car there, is the speed camera there? And if they saw neither of them, they were minded to drive perhaps more dangerously or recklessly. But now they know, and when word spreads around this, that anybody can report their driving, and police can enforce on the back of the public footage, I think that will have a major deterrence impact. So much so that I'm routinely on record as calling it an absolute game changer for road danger. I think it is. And therefore, the role Nextbase play as one provider, and I know they're a keen supporter of Project Edward, so thank them for that, is really, really important. But obviously this is any footage, so it's dash cam footage, it's head cam footage from cyclists, it's sometimes horse riders have the footage as well, so but it can be anything, mobile phone footage, anything. So any member of the public can now report what they see, and the police can take action across that. Now we have in the past, it's been pretty indifferent in terms of the service you get from whatever policing area you report to. Some did it really well, some did it okay, and some didn't do it at all. So we've now issued national guidance, and I chair a national working group which pretty much every force in the country attend. When we developed that guidance, and to put the guidance into context, it delivers, in my view, a minimum standard that the public can expect when reporting their footage. So they should expect an update in terms of what we do with it. Now that might be no further action, it might be a warning letter, it might be we refer them to a driving course, it might be a fixed penalty notice, it might be a summons to court. And I know that we do disqualify drivers on the back of the footage that gets referred. Drivers have got suspended prison sentences on the back of the footage referred as well. So it really does have an impact, but I felt it was really, really important to update the public, because one, to educate them, so if perhaps they submit footage which is of no use, they know, so it doesn't essentially waste their time and ours in future. But also in the cases where we do use it, I think it's really, really important they know it's being used, and therefore minded to refer again. And actually it's really, really courteous to update them in terms of, to thank them essentially for their footage, and to explain that it was of use as well. And I think that's been a really, really important step. And we are seeing substantial increases in referral numbers now. I see this across the country. We still got work to do. So I think in terms of our enforcement, on occasion it's too light. And I think that will grow and become more consistent as time passes. But I think actually sentencing in general on road crime is light, and I think that's just perhaps a culture issue, both within policing, but within the wider justice system, and in fact probably wider society, as to how they they view road crime and the impact it has. Because what is this about? Fundamentally, it's about protecting life. So we very much want our roads to be safer. That deterrence factor I talked about in terms of the way drivers may drive because they're concerned they may be reported. It allows us to enforce, so therefore curtail some of the driving that's out there and obviously disqualify some drivers. I think that's a really big win for the public who wanted to be part of the solution. They can be now. And as I said, referral numbers are dramatically increasing across the country. And I think this will only grow as well. So when we look further forward, I think in time manufacturers should fit Dashcam as standard. I've certainly been calling for that for a while, and I think would be a really positive step forward. I think insurers should incentivise usage as well through premiums being lower. And I think again that would encourage safe and sensible driving from the people that they insure, and would be again a positive step forward. And I think the technology will improve as well. So we can, despite what people think, enforce speed through, for example, dashcam referral. That's not something we do as a matter of course, but we can do it, but it just takes work and analysis. And road safety support have demonstrated with some of their circulations cases which have gone to court and successfully been prosecuted and convicted based on dashcam footage for speeding. But I think in time the technology, for example, might develop so it becomes just so easy to enforce that. And I think what we are seeing is proportionate use of dashcams. So we're trying to prioritise the type of offences that we enforce through it. And of course, speeding would very much be one of them as an absolute primary contributory factor to fatal and serious collisions. So we are trying to be proportionate. We are developing or trying to develop the technology. We are trying to influence industry, and we are now with clear guidance across the country, nationally using it. And crucially as well, we're marketing it to the public so that word spreads, referrals continue to rise, and drivers become increasingly aware that we can use that footage and what it means for them as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Andy. That was Detective Chief Superintendent Andy Cox, who was out yesterday talking to Neil Barrett on one of Project Edward's road trips, and it was a road trip visit to Lincolnshire. We're going to move on now and hear from Kira Lee. Kira is a journalist with Reuters, and her husband Eddie was killed on the M4 in 2018. He was knocked off his motorbike near Langley. It was a van driver that crashed into the back of Eddie, and very sadly, Eddie died from his injuries 8 days later. Now, Kira, the van driver was sentenced, most important, the van driver was sentenced to 1 year and 10 months, and he was banned from driving for 5 years. Kira thinks that this is an insult to people who are killed in road traffic accidents, that really it should be a ban, a driving ban for life. Kira's with us now. Kira, very nice of you to join us this afternoon. Thank you for being with us. Tell us, first of all, something about Eddie, and also how the last 3 years have been for you. And Seren, your son, Seren, of course, is 5 now, isn't he?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I often get asked to describe Eddie when I'm talking about what happened to him. And I think when he died, I felt this huge pressure to try and explain to the world what an amazing person he was, as if it would generate some more outrage about what had happened to him. And what I've found along my journey is that everyone that's been killed in this way, all of their loved ones feel that same thing, because each of these people was deprived of their life, and they were the best people possible, and they were taken unnecessarily. But if I was to describe Eddie, I would say he was like, being around him was like breathing the purest, freshest air. You kind of came away from being with him feeling like your life had been improved. And you might think, describing someone like that, he would have been a big character and, loud or something, but he was the opposite. He was incredibly shy. He hated being center of attention. And he made this incredible impact on those around him by just being really gentle, really considerate. He didn't say lots in a big group, but anything he said, he really meant. And I think, the lasting impact that had on Seren and I is that we knew how much love he always put into everyone that he really cared about. And, obviously I was biased, I was married to him, so I thought he was amazing, but I only really fully realized he was making an impact on so many people when I realized hundreds and hundreds of people were turning up to his funeral, and hundreds of people were outraged about what had happened to him. But yeah, you know, that was 3 years ago, and life goes on. You have to start again in many ways. Seren was 2 when Eddie died, so the impact on him was minimal in some ways, in that he now doesn't remember his dad, which is horrendous for me to see, but is actually kinder for him. But I noticed the impact on him in that he spoke Chinese before he spoke English, because his dad spoke Chinese at home, and he lost his language very quickly, which meant he then lost that link to his grandparents, because they speak fluent Chinese and don't speak a huge amount of English. So, you know, the knock-on's been huge, but we are a really great little team, and we plow on, and we still have a great life. We've had a great 3 years in many ways. You know, I've traveled lots with him, and he started school. But yeah, we keep going without Eddie, but we talk about him every day. And, you know, what more can you do other than kind of take all the good bits that you had from that person and try and turn them into something that has a positive impact on the future.
He sounds a really fabulous man. I have seen a photograph of him, and he looks lovely, and he sounds amazing. And can you not perhaps occasionally speak a bit of Chinese with Seren yourself? Because you must have picked up a few words, I imagine, being married to Eddie.
Yeah, I speak a little bit, but obviously when he was 2, so much of what we would say to him was, you know, we'd say, "Wun ping ping, do you need your nappy changed?" You know, I don't really need to be saying that to him so much anymore, thankfully. But yeah, you know, we do try and keep it going a bit, but it's also, I try and force it, and then it's actually a really sad thing, because it's just a huge reminder of what's been lost. But I think I mentioned to you before when we were talking that Seren has picked up this natural flair for French at school, and you know, he's only 5, and I think, well, okay, maybe leave the Chinese, but actually what he's taking from the fact that Eddie had created this little bilingual child is that he has an ability to pick up languages really quickly. So maybe that's, you know, that's the gift that Eddie's given him, is that he's going to be a little French speaker or a Spanish speaker. So I'll take the positive.
Kira, coming back to this really terrible accident that happened, just how important was the dash cam footage to you and the case against this van driver who was distracted and drove into Eddie?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. I'll talk about it in two ways, really. Firstly, if I talk about the case, there was really strong eyewitness testimony that came forward very quickly about just how bad the impact was. The driver was distracted for at least, I mean, I think they said up to 16 seconds on a stretch of road that was completely straight. There were brake lights in all 3 lanes of traffic. Everyone had pretty much ground to a halt. So there was absolutely no excuse for someone to have ploughed into Eddie at such high speed without hitting the brakes. But obviously when the police say to you, you know, we've got really strong eyewitness testimony and we're confident that we're going to be able to charge him, you never feel completely assured that that's going to happen. And thankfully, a Harrods van came forward with CCTV from its van, and it was incredibly powerful CCTV. It was really high quality. It was a 360-degree recording. It managed to capture Eddie's riding for the minutes leading up to the collision, which, you know, obviously spoke volumes about Eddie on a motorbike, because people have misconceptions about motorcyclists. And it was able to catch the van hitting Eddie at speed, not hitting the brakes. And crucially, it then also managed to capture a van in the next lane with the same logo on as the van that hit Eddie. So they were able to piece together the idea that actually these 2 vans knew each other and they were communicating with each other. So therefore it gave some kind of explanation as to what the driver was doing, because he wasn't forthcoming in what had happened. You know, he initially started out with a no comment in questioning. And then when he was shown the footage, which they held off doing for a while, he was almost instantly, said to his lawyers, tell his wife, I'm going to plead guilty. It was, you know, that simple. And if you were to have a best case scenario of a horrific situation, I got it. And the impact on my life has been significant because I wasn't put through a trial. I went to sentencing, and yeah, the sentence was terrible, but that's an entirely different issue that we will tackle separately. But it just gave me, you know, it made an unbearable time just about bearable, which allowed me to start piecing my life back together. So in terms of the legal proceedings, it was hugely important.
Made an enormous difference. And I believe you were eventually actually courageous enough to actually see that footage, I believe, weren't you?
No, and that's actually the beauty of it. It's the most important piece of footage in my life, but I never have to watch it. And had it gone to trial, I would have had to see it. And I can't imagine how I would have dealt with that. I would have dealt with it, because you do, but it again gave me a best case scenario of a very bad situation, which takes me on to the other benefits of Dashcam, which I would never have considered had I not been in this situation. And for me, the psychological benefits of it have been huge, because I was able to, without seeing the footage, I was able to ask the police team every single possible question about Eddie's death. And I don't know whether that's because I'm an information hungry person, because I'm a journalist, or whether it was because it was the most important person in my life that had been killed. And you think when you get married that one of you will die first, and you think you will spend that person's last minutes with them, and you will have a certain amount of say over, you know, how they're treated and pain relief and all that sort of thing. And all of that was taken away from me at 34. But what I was able to check was that he didn't suffer, because that was the fundamental thing, was that someone you love has been killed unlawfully. And the most important thing in the world for me was to know that Eddie didn't suffer. And that footage allowed me to know that he didn't suffer. He was unconscious instantly. He was hit from behind, and he wouldn't even have known that that van was coming. And that allowed me less torture than what I was already going through, which allowed me to be a better mother, which allowed me to piece my life back together and go back to work, and to be here for things like this, and to see a path of how I can help make roads safer by telling the story. Had I been forced to see that footage in a trial, I don't know if it would, you know, I don't know if I'd be as strong as I am now. I don't know if I'd be as resilient as I am now.
So that Harrods van having that dash cam made absolutely all the difference in the world to you. But what you were very angry about, I know, is the fact that the driver who drove into Eddie got such a short sentence, and you believe that should be much longer.
Yeah, I do. And I think when it first happened and he was first sentenced, I was kind of outraged that the word months was put after his sentence. He only served 11 months in prison. The rest was on license. And I found that really hard, especially as my son had started asking, you know, where's the man that killed Daddy? And I, for a while, could say he's in prison. And then he'd say, where's the man that killed Daddy? And I'd have to say he's at home. He's gone back to his family. That was difficult. But I think as my kind of anger and my own values sort of came back to me, and I thought, you know, sending someone to prison for life isn't really the answer in this situation. But banning them from driving is a very simple way to deal with it, and would have a huge impact. It would make our roads safer. It would send a message that my husband's life was worth banning someone from driving. He will be back on the roads in 3 years now, I guess, 3 or 4 years. So back to normal, you know. That's really difficult, and I think a lot of families in my position find that difficult, because it doesn't really harm anyone to be banning these dangerous drivers for life. It's something we could do, and I think, you know, Dashcam is something that can help with that, because I think, you know, as Andy was saying in his video, it's a cultural thing. We need to make the cultural shift where we see bad driving and we call it out. And I think once you call it out, then we can start punishing it more appropriately. Whereas at the moment, there's this kind of culture where we don't, and then the punishments don't change. And, you know, the voice of these communities where we're all trying to speak out and change things, they can only get louder, and they'll get louder through the introduction of technology like dashcam footage.
Well, Ciara, thank you very, very much indeed for telling us this afternoon about what happened to you. It's very brave of you to come along, and I know that you would encourage everybody to have a dash cam in their car. I think I'm certainly thinking about it. It was, you're going to be with us, of course, you're not leaving us yet. You're going to stay with us till the very end of our webinar, as is Bryn, to answer questions, and I'm sure quite a few will come in for you. So are you happy to do that?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for telling us about Eddie and Seren and you. Well, we're going to move on now to James Luckhurst. James is actually now with the Avon and Somerset Police, actually quite near where I live. I have to be careful now, where James has been spending some time with expert officers trying to find out just how you download, upload, and analyze some webcam footage, so dash cam footage. So let's go over now and see what James has learned.
I'm PC Dan Cox. I'm from Avon and Somerset Police. I'm the road safety officer. I believe dashcam will transform road safety, not just in the Avon and Somerset area, but nationally. The ability of all road users, our entire community, to be part of a journey improving road safety by capturing evidence of poor driving from those selfish few that actually cause havoc for the rest of us. And whether you've got a bicycle, whether you're using a mobile phone, you're in a truck or a bus or a car or a motorbike, it makes no difference. You know, we can take that footage, we can assess it, and we will deal with it accordingly, whether that's educating drivers, whether that's prosecuting drivers.
Is there a danger that people will buy one and just go out and do their own vigilante enforcement and bother you daily with submissions of dashcam footage?
Well, that's already in place. That's already the case nationally. But at the end of the day, we should embrace the footage that we get, because the footage that we get tells a story, and that story is far from good. You know, people need their driving improved. So if people want to partake in spending vast amounts of time capturing evidence, that's their choice in life. It wouldn't be mine. However, we will take that footage and we will process it and we will deal with it. And
is there a danger that it's purely plugging a gap made by a reduction in roads policing officers?
Well, it's got a different dynamic, and yes, you couldn't argue that we've got few roads policing officers who are driven by incidents such as collisions that they're tied up with a lot. But never with any amount of police officers could you capture the data and information that the entire community could do. So it's a totally different dynamic, it's new, and it's growing really fast.
Any do's and don'ts then before I go out and purchase and install a dashcam?
Well, I would say it depends on the vehicle that you've got, but we're underrepresented with motorcyclists, the most vulnerable road user, motorcyclists. We'd like more motorcyclists getting cameras and using them. We would like more cyclists, and in particular more horse riders. We get a lot of complaints from horse riders, very little footage. So we've got a great opportunity to deal with the problem from those selfish few that affect many others, right at source with this footage. So it's a case of getting cameras that are stabilized so that the images are really clear, and they can also last a long time, because it's no good going out and you want to go on a hack or motorcycle ride for an hour and a half and the camera only lasts 20 minutes. So it's assessing what your particular needs are. If you've got a car, you can get a combined camera from the rear as well. So if someone's tailgating you or they've come up to overtake you, we've got forward and backward facing cameras. Okay, we're going to show you 4 clips. These have been taken from a sample of the thousands of images that we get sent in, and they've been finalised, which means convictions generally in most, or we haven't been able to deal with them. So we'll give you an opportunity to see if you can guess through multiple choice what outcome that you would give them, because it doesn't always correlate between what we think, because we understand the legislation, the courts and the Crown Prosecution Service, as to what the perception think, you know, such as what is dangerous driving in the eyes of the law, but dangerous driving as a driver, and what you perceive it to be, very different. So have a look, see what you think, and see if it ties up with us. My name is
Mhm. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that was an expert from the Avon and Somerset Police explaining a little bit about how they work. I was trying to think where you'd have one for if you're riding a horse. I suppose you'd put it on the front of your not helmets on horses, are they? Your hat. But certainly I've got friends who ride motorbikes. So I'm going to tell them about that, put them onto their motorbikes. Very useful advice there about how you upload and analyze the footage. And we're now going to put your tests, as we were told by that officer, your tests to the skill. We're going to show you some recent dash cam footage to see how you feel the outcome should have been and see what you make of it. So I'm going to hand you back to Rob to explain how that's going to work. Rob.
Thank you, Valerie. That's wonderful. So what we're going to first start off is I'm just going to play a bit of a PowerPoint for you. Because I think it's important for us just to have a good understanding of, just share my screen properly with you. There you go. You should be able to see that. We're going to talk about initially how footage is sent to the police. It's through an operation called Operation Snap. That's what it's pretty much called across it nationally. So what is Operation Snap? Well, it's a streamlined process the police use to deal with submissions of videos or photographic evidence relating to driving offences that members of the public have witnessed or have captured digitally. So basically, if you've caught it on your camera, then you can submit it to the police through Operation Snap. So how do you report that incident to the police? Well, if you visit any police force across the country, you go onto their website and you'll either be able to find a link to Operation Snap, or it will say report a road traffic incident. If you go to that link, then click on it, you'll be able to complete an online form which leads you through the process very easily. In fact, I had a look yesterday just to make sure I could do it myself. Once you've submitted it, you will be contacted back by the police, who will provide you with a unique link to upload your footage. So it's very much then protected. But the caveat here is that you need to update it and upload that within 72 hours of receiving that link. So you've got 72 hours to submit it once you receive the link. So here we go. I have reported an incident. What will be the outcome? And this will be important when we're looking at the videos shortly. The police will review the case and the following possible outcomes will take place for the owner or driver of the vehicle, because it will depend on what the offences are. So the first one is formal action. Well, that means that the eligible driver, the person who was driving that vehicle when they committed the offence, will be offered an educational course or issued a fixed penalty notice. No eligible drivers will be prosecuted in court, okay, or non-eligible drivers will be prosecuted in court. So if they do fit the criteria, then they wouldn't be prosecuted in court, or they will be prosecuted in court. Get it right. Warning in writing. So where poor driving is shown but does not meet the burden of proof or realistic prospect of conviction in court. So where basically the police say, I don't think, and the police have to have beyond reasonable doubt. So when the police get that, if they don't feel that they can prove that realistic in court, then they will write to the person and give them a warning if they can see that an offence has been committed. No further action. So where no clear offences shown, or basically the submission terms aren't met, and now the submission terms are things like the footage is too short or the registration number is not obtainable, then obviously the police won't be able to trace that person, and therefore no further action would be possible. So those are your three outcomes: formal action, where they prosecute the person, and that could be an educational course, a fixed penalty notice, and if someone's not eligible for either an educational course, because you can only do one of those every 3 years, or you're not eligible to a fixed penalty because they think it's too severe, they will send you to court, or it could be a warning, or it could be no further action. Those are your three outcomes. So it's important to remember that when we look at the videos shortly. So will I hear back from the police? So when you actually submit that, do the police actually come back to you? Well, in the majority of cases, the police won't contact you again. The only time when they will is if it's actually going to go to court. So if the person gets a fixed penalty notice or an educational course, you're not going to hear back. That's the result. If you don't hear anything back within 6 months, okay, then you know that you're not going to court. And the reason I say 6 months, because the offences we're dealing here are traffic offences which have a cut-off date of 6 months. So therefore, someone would have to be going to court or served summons within 6 months. You would have been told about that. So do you, as the individual, need to retain the footage? You've submitted it to the police, but do I need to retain it? Well, if the case proceeds to court, then the original footage, that's the footage that you hold, will be required to be given by you as a witness as evidence, because what you've sent to the police is only just a snippet of your evidence and it isn't the original evidence. So it's your responsibility to save that footage in the original format. So that means you shouldn't be editing it, changing it, or doing anything with it. Just keep it in the same format. So I cannot read the number plate of the offending vehicle. Can they enhance it? Well, no, the police can't. Basically, the police have to take the footage as they find it, the way you present it, because that's your evidence. They cannot enhance that. So if the number plate can't be read, I'm afraid no further action will happen in that case. Okay, nearly getting to the things. So do I need a date or timestamp on the footage? So we saw from the clip that we saw from Bryn's slide had a date and time on it. Does that have to be on there? Well, no, it doesn't have to be on there. But if it is on there and it's inaccurate, because quite often we have these things where the time and dates are wrong. If it's inaccurate, then you need to make that in your report when you report to the police and said, yes, it's out of time, it's on the wrong time and date. But you need to accurately state the date and time and the location of the incident when it happened, so the police can prosecute on that. So it's important for you to remember those details. So will the offending driver know who you are? Now, this is the case because a lot of people are very much worried about, somebody having reprisals and coming to them. Well, the offender will not be provided with your details. There'll be a very rare occasion that if it does go to court, which is rare, and you have to give evidence, then obviously they will know your name, but they won't know your address and they won't know any other personal details about you. It'll be purely your name. So how long will the footage be stored by the police? Well, the footage you've submitted will go, which you've submitted through the unique link that the police have provided you, actually sits in with their privacy and retention policies, which I have to say is often around about 7 years, because if someone wanted to come back and say about a conviction they got, they can come back, and evidence usually is 7 years they would keep that evidence for. So will my mobile phone, dash cam, or other recording device be taken from me? So those could be things that you could use to submit footage from. Doesn't have to be just always dash cam. No, you won't. You will be able to keep the device. Quite often people have heard these things, well, the police came along and seized my mobile phone from me or my dash cam and I never got it back. That's not the case. All they want is the footage. So I've put the footage on social media. I mean, how many people want to say, look, I got cut up by this terrible driver, and how often do we put this stuff up on the internet? Well, can you do that? You can obviously do it, but if you do it, obviously the Crown Prosecution Service feel that it undermines any prosecution because it's in the public domain and would adversely affect a subsequent proceedings, because basically you're putting that person on trial publicly, and it has to be done officially within the court. So if you put it up on social media, you need to take it down immediately when you submit it to the police. Will my actions or anyway be captured of, will my actions or the way in which I captured the footage be scrutinized? Now, this is an important question because bear in mind, did you entice this incident? Is it down to you? Sometimes you may be shouting out the window, swearing at someone. Maybe you are partly responsible for it. We have had cases like that. We've been submitted to the police before. So the police are duty bound to review the incident and all the incidents leading around it. So obviously they're going to look at your behavior and in the manner in which the footage was obtained by you. Now, if they do pick up an offence by you, you could face prosecution yourself. So if you've done some bad driving as a result of it, leading up to it or afterwards, you could be prosecuted as well. So, it's important for us to drive carefully at all times. So the police know what happens before and after the actual incident that they're looking at prosecuting. They want at least 1 minute of footage before and after the incident. So they don't need the whole hour or whatever before. It just needs to be 1 minute before and 1 minute after that incident. So, in summary, if you wish to report an incident, you will need to be able to abide by the following. 1, you must provide an accurate date, time, and location of the incident. And you saw the webcam or dash cams that Bryn was talking about actually showed you a map of where the incident happened as well. And that often gives a GPS number, which is very accurate in identifying where it occurred. All incidents should be reported within 7 days of the event. So there's no point hanging on to it for several weeks and then doing something about it. You should be reporting it within 7 days of the event. And the reason for that is the police have to serve what we call a notice of intended prosecution on someone within 14 days of an offence. So that's why if the police hear it outside 14 days, they won't be able to serve a notice of intended prosecution. Footage must not be edited. So you can't go in there, enhance things, change things. It has to be exactly how your dash cam picked it up. And as I said just a minute ago, footage must show at least 1 minute either side of the incident. So a minute before and a minute afterwards. And footage must not be deleted from your device, okay? You can obviously get it on a memory card and keep it on there. That's fine, but you mustn't delete it. And footage must not be shared on social media. So that's the important bits to bear in mind on that. Right, well, that brings me to the end of that. I will just have to end my show to you here. And I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm back onto something else. So what I'm going to do is just call up the video now, and then we'll have a poll. We'll stop it as we're going along, but I'm going to play a video showing you the actual clips that we want you to consider. So let's just play that and get it up on the screen. You just make it big. Here we go.
My name is Michael Bullock, and I'm the supervisor for the Central Ticket Office for Avon and Somerset Police.
In order for those dashcam submissions to stand the best chance of the proper outcome, or the most desirable outcome, let's have a look at some, and from your point of view, that will help people with dashcams to know what they can upload, what's worth uploading, but where you may not be able to take something further. So is that all right? Have you got 4 clips for us?
I certainly have, yes.
How do you know it's a joke?
The number plate's a joke.
Hang on.
Woo! Sorry, girls!
Shit! Shit! Sorry! 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 Is everybody alright? Is everybody alright? Turn it off! Turn it off! Turn it off!
So I just apologize for the swearing that happened in there, but you can understand it is quite a scary thing. So what we're going to ask, this is what's your verdict? So those are the questions I'm going to ask. I'm just going to pull them up on a poll for you and ask if you would just answer these questions. So let me just share that with you. It should be coming up now. So if you'd like to just vote on what you feel the action is. So what verdict do you think? No further action, an education course, fixed penalty ticket, or court fine, points, or a ban? Let's see what you think out of that. I'll just let you get in quite few. 50% of people have voted so far, so I'll just let you carry on voting at the moment. I'll keep going. So what do you think was the best outcome the police would take from that? Okay, we're just about 85%. So I'm just going to end that poll now, and I'll share the results with you. So 25% of you said no further action. 45% of you sent them on an education course, and that's like now an online course, or you can do one in a classroom. 19% said a fixed penalty notice. That's usually like £100 or 3 points on your license, can be up to 6 points for certain offences. Or 11% said the person was caught, they got fined, they got points, and possibly a ban as well. So that's important to understand as well. Right, let's see what actually happened.
To me, it would have been a without you car, where basically a car's going round a roundabout and it's been cut up on the inside by a car that's headed for the exit. Unfortunately, no further action has been taken. The reason being is that I can't read the registration number. If I can't read the registration number, I can't prosecute.
Let's take a look at clip number 2.
Okay, right, we've seen that one. We heard from the last one because I couldn't get details. Let's see what you think of this one. So I'm going to just share you the second poll. See what you get from that. Here we go. Just launch this one again. So what's your verdict this time? Was the evidence too shaky? No further action? education course, due care offence, or dangerous driving. Okay, we're having lots of votes coming in this time. That's great. We're up to 60%, so I'll leave it a little bit more for you to keep voting on this, and then we'll share your results with you. Here we go, a few more coming in. And right, let's end that, and I shall share you the results. Right, so this time, 57% of you thought the evidence was too shaky, no further action. 27% of you said an education course. 13% said due care, where that's careless driving as we know it. And 3% said dangerous driving offence. Okay, let's see what actually happened. Just end that.
So the next clip that we saw was is a cyclist, a close pass of a cyclist. Now that could have been, it's very close between a close pass and without due care. The issue for me is that the quality of video. You have to have a good quality of video so that it's very clear in what you're saying. Again, a lot of the reasons with the registration numbers not being able to be seen is because the video quality is not good. It's either too shaky, it stretches or whatever. You just can't make out the registration correctly.
So that's 2 videos down, and so far no action. Let's move to video number 3.
So, right, interesting one, that one. Obviously captured by a cyclist, I think, with this helmet on. So as you can see here, what's your verdict in relation to this one? So I'll just put the poll up. Pull that back up again. Right, so what's your verdict? No offence is shown. It's inconclusive, no endorsable penalty ticket, or it was careless driving. Now, bear in mind, this was taken by a cyclist on his helmet. Whether that's relevant or not, I don't know. Interesting, we're up to 50%. I think there's a little bit more doubting on here of what to vote for. So slowly building around at the moment. We're up to 70%. I'll take you up to about 80% of your votes coming in, and then we'll end the poll there just to make sure. Rightio. Right, let's share those results with you. So you've said 40% said no offence was shown. Okay, 44% of you said it was inconclusive. And 6% said no endorsable penalty ticket was issued, and 9% said it was a careless driving. Sorry, a non-endorsable fixed penalty ticket. That should read, I've put no, non-endorsable fixed penalty ticket was issued. So there we go. That's what you think. Let's have a look and see what actually happened.
The third video we've just watched is when the public upload footage, they give incident details of what's taken place. Some people could be like a red light, or it could be quite more. The video that we've just watched, this is actually, it's a contravene a keep right sign. It was quite difficult initially to decipher what offences had taken place. I've had to go on to Google Maps and then Street View to look from the other direction of where the dash cam was to find out what the offences were. So sometimes it's actually not apparent what the person is reporting. It's good sometimes if you actually put down in the incident details, contravenes a red light or overtaken on double white lines.
Time for our 4th and final clip.
Go away! Go away! Go away! Go away! Go away!
So, as you can see, a cyclist there who's obviously quite concerned and quite worried by it. And that really shows you about the importance of that sort of minute, you know, what we want before and afterwards, because it really shows that the cyclist wasn't doing anything to entice this. So what's the verdict? Was it an educational course, fixed penalty and 3 points, fixed penalty and 6 points, or a driving ban and substantial fine? So let's share you the poll for you to look at, and then you can vote for me on that. There you go. So was it an education course the person got? Did they get fixed penalty and 3 points? Did they get fixed penalty and 6 points? Or was it a driving ban and substantial fine? Obviously, you can see the police have prosecuted on this occasion, but how severely did they take this? Give you a little bit more. We're up to 68%, 70% of you voting now. Give you just a little bit more, and then we'll close the poll and share it with you. A few more of you to go. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So there you go. You've said 21% of you said the person was sent on an education course. 43% of you said fixed penalty notice and 3 points on their license. And 24% of you said a fixed penalty and 6 points. And the last bit said a driving ban and a substantial fine. Okay, let's see what actually happened.
This one was a without due care where we had a victim. Essentially, you've had a cyclist that was close passed by a motorist. The motorist, for some reason, then has decided to pursue the cyclist down the road. Whether the motorist wanted to have a conversation with the cyclist over what he's allegedly done, I don't know. But as it was, he basically followed the cyclist. Even when the cyclist turned round, the motorist still followed and then did another close pass on the cyclist. I decided that was without due care. That went to magistrates court. The driver eventually pleaded guilty, and as a result, he was disqualified for 3 months. That's disqualified for 3 months, and he was given over £1,000 in fine and costs. So to me, that shows that actually, when people upload Dashcam, we do take it seriously, and we do publish the results on our Twitter accounts. So, you know, if anyone out there was thinking about, is it worth my while? It's always worth your while to upload Dashcam. Even where we decide that if you upload for, say, a contravening a red light, and I look at the footage and decide actually there's no offence that's taken place, that vehicle might have no insurance, it might not have no MOT, the registration number may not be conforming. So there are other offences that I can look at that I could prosecute even if the original offence is no further action.
So there we go, Valerie. How did you get on with that? Were you just as fair with them?
Well, I got education course the first time. I couldn't work out what the second problem was. I missed the fact that there were cyclists. They're so quick. I was thinking it was cars that were doing this. I'm also curious about how you can put stuff in if you've done it on a mobile. Presumably that's a passenger, not you, I hope. You couldn't be using your mobile. And some of them seem so slight that whether I would actually think to bother to put them in is interesting. And the fact that, you know, you can only have a minute one side, minute before, minute after. I wouldn't think sometimes you actually think to go on, you know, making sure of something after, a minute after. You're probably too, you know, horrified by maybe what's happened. And of course, you've got to edit that. And then you're told you mustn't edit. So I'm a little bit confused.
Yes, it is a bit full on, isn't it, really? So let's, I'll hand you back so we can get on with some questions and answers then.
Yeah, we have got, because we're coming now to the formal end, aren't we? It was very interesting. I'd like to have seen those again. It really made my mind up. And we're coming to questions now, aren't we, Rob? And you've got lots, I believe. Now, shall I ask the first one?
Yes, if we can get Kira and Bryn to bring their cameras back up for us, that would be fantastic.
Kira
And join us.
And
there we go.
Very kindly joined us for this. We'll see who feels they want to answer. If anybody wants to cut in to somebody else to answer a question. The first one I've got is it legal to use a dash cam, and does it not infringe on a person's privacy? Probably,
yeah,
I would think.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Firstly, the privacy laws across Europe are actually different. This is something that, obviously being a manufacturer that we sell across Europe and elsewhere, we have to be very mindful of. But in the UK, where you're recording in a public place, the road, then the footage is legal to record, much like you would with a mobile phone. In countries like Germany, actually dash cams were illegal about 3 years ago. The law changed in Germany to allow dash cam footage to be used, and now we're seeing over there a very similar trend like we have had in the UK. Many people are using dash cams and using them for exactly the same reasons that we do. That's a great question.
Thank you, Bryn. Rob, your turn.
Yes. If you capture an incident on a dash cam, do I have to search through all the memory to find that particular clip, or is there a way of putting a marker on when I see something?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways you can make a marker. As I mentioned earlier, dash cams typically make files in 1 minute segments or 3 minute segments. You can either make a marker by the actual incident itself. So if there's a physical crash, a bump, then the dash cam will do that automatically for you. You don't have to worry about it. It's just there. You can also make a marker by voice on some of our dash cams. Some of our dash cams have got Alexa, so you can simply say, lock that file, and it will make a marker for you. Or you can also ask a passenger to tap a button on the dash cam and mark it as well. We do not recommend doing that yourself. You should be driving. We don't recommend touching dash cams when you're driving.
Right, me again. How easy are they to set up and operate? I suppose that's for you, Bryn.
Yeah, they're firing all at me at the moment, aren't they? So, yeah, it's pretty easy. Essentially, all you need to do is put a micro SD card in the camera, and that's where your footage is stored. That's where all the data is stored. It adheres, or it has an adhesive pad, sticks it onto the windscreen, and then has a cable that either goes to your cigarette lighter, 12-volt socket, or you can have a cable that goes to your fuse box. We find that I would say 70% of people will fit the dash cam themselves as a self-fit. If you're a competent DIYer, you'll be more than happy to do that. Or if not, you can happily pop to Halfords. They do a fitting service, or we offer a nationwide fitting service where somebody can come to your home or your work and do it for you.
Great.
Can I just throw something in there? You're talking about sort of actually filming things and then cutting it down and looking at the what about at night, if you're leaving your camera in the car, is that not going to sort of attract thieves?
Yeah, so this is something that when we very first started selling dash cams, we thought might be an issue, and it does come up quite a lot. That yes, when sat navs first came out, they were stolen quite commonly. But there's a couple of things I think that have helped the dash cam not be something that's stolen. Firstly, it's a device that's recording. If a thief doesn't know whether it's recording them and capturing them, and then if they get caught halfway in the act, then they would be on that footage. But I think the biggest deterrent is simply the location of the dash cam. Normally, you tuck it high behind your rear mirror in the center of the vehicle. Whereas a sat nav, when they first came out, were typically just inside the window. So it was a smash the window and it was there and you were gone. Whereas a dash cam, you would have to smash the main window, get physically into the car, then take the dash cam off and its mount that's stuck to the window and rip all the cabling out and then get back out to the car. And I think simply because there's that the time that it would take to do that, I'm sure it's not maybe 30 seconds a minute, but because it's that extra length of time and the chance of being caught are probably higher, then no, we've seen that it's not been the case.
Okay.
Yeah. Rob, over to you for another question.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to clarify with you on Bryn. Obviously, in that situation, where you mount it behind the mirror, you want to make sure that it's not within the brush. Putting my policeman's head on here, but it's not within the brush of the windscreen wipers, because otherwise it would be shown as blocking your view. You need to make sure that you put it outside the wave of the windscreen wipers.
Yeah, 100%. And so we typically recommend on the passenger side, and the law is not within 4 centimeters into that wiped area.
Yeah, that's great. So the police only want a minute before and after, as I went through a little bit earlier. How can you do this? And is it easy to download that?
Yeah, because of the way dash cams arrange their files, it's almost done for you. So if they want a minute before and after, essentially you'll be selecting 3 video files and sending it off. The minutes before and after will be recorded automatically. You don't have to worry about it. And typically, if you've got our middle of the range camera, say the 322 model, that will be recording at 1080p HD. Most people choose a 64 gigabyte SD card to put inside it to take that data. And that'll be giving you about 8 hours of recording before it loops over itself. So the way it records is to 1-minute files back to back for 8 hours, and then it will go back and start again automatically, just keep on going, looping round and round and round. So it's really rare that anybody drives for more than 8 hours in one stint. And typically, if you've had either an incident or you've got something you want, you'll get it at the end of that drive. So it'll be there ready to go.
Brilliant, thank you.
Rob, I'm going to jump ahead for the moment and ask a question that's come in for Kira. Kira, I think probably we know the answer to this. What would you say to someone thinking about buying a dash cam, especially if, you know, not everyone's got the sort of extra pennies for something like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it makes sense to buy one. I wish more vehicles were fitted with them from purchase. I think that would be a really positive step. Because I mentioned earlier about changing the culture and how we view it. And I saw one of the questions pop up about sort of a vigilante aspect to it. And especially for those of you on social media, you'll see there are certain characters who are reporting lots and lots, and some say, oh, these people are going out looking for problems. And I think, well, if we all had them and it became just, you know, a common thing that we see bad driving, we report it, we see, you know, bad road use, we report it, then it would completely change that culture. So I think if they could be implemented more as standard in new car models, then I think that would be such a positive step forwards, and, you know, take away, you know, that, oh, I have to spend some money on this. When you think about it, it's not a huge amount of money, and, you know, it would be so positive if we all had one, really.
Thank you. Back to you, Rob, for another question.
Yes. Basically, should I put my dash cam away when parked at night? Because obviously, you know, is that going to be a problem? And we're talking about theft, but I mean, it really is something. Is it something that should be hidden away?
I would honestly say it depends where you live. If you live in a very high crime area where there's constantly people stealing sat-navs and things, and you are concerned, then yes, take it off. The mount is designed so that the dash cam can clip off, the mount itself and all the power cabling can stay in place. The dash cam can just go indoors with you if you wish, no problem at all. Personally, I've driven all sorts of places and stayed overnight, Birmingham, London, Bristol, Manchester, everywhere. I haven't taken my dash cam out of my vehicle for 5 years. And I have no worries about it whatsoever. But I think if somebody was worried, there's no problem at all.
Right, another question, Bryn, which is for you. If I leave the dash cam in my car at night or parked up, does it still keep recording, and will it flatten my battery, or should you turn the key off perhaps?
So typically, no, it doesn't still keep recording. The default is no. However, you certainly can keep it recording if you wish. And if you do wish to go down that route, I recommend having a chat with the next-based support centre. There's a couple of little things that you just need to do, such as using a special hardwire kit that we provide, which means the battery doesn't go flat, and then allows the camera to record when you wish.
Okay, thank you. Rob, your turn.
Yes, thank you. Kira, how many people do you know have a dash cam now? I'm guessing it's something that you'd be promoting and saying, look, you know, it was really important for me.
Yeah, not many, to be honest. People close to me went out and got them. A lot of people went and got them fitted at Halfords. Yeah, not many. I'm more used to cyclist friends using them, helmet cams, but less so driving friends. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing really, but you know, things can only get better. And I think, you know, the more we talk about it, the more we sort of promote them, then people are going to realize that they're protecting themselves, they're protecting other people around them. It's saving lives and making our roads safer. Every time something's reported, it's doing that little bit to make our roads safer.
Yeah, and I'm guessing by doing that, we are this. I mean, just I know a lot of cyclists have them, as we've seen from the clips from today, and we're going to see more and more, aren't we? Because everybody's going to be picking up on those ideas and thinking, especially as the police now are taking them, you know, a lot of people are going to think that's a good idea. Thank you, Kira.
Can I throw in a question to Bryn? I don't quite see how I can have it up without getting in the way of my windscreen wipers. I'm just thinking of where my wipers go. Maybe managed to do that. And also earlier on, we saw that there's a little map comes up in the corner. I don't have a sat nav. So how do you get a little Google map? Does that, where does that come from? Showing you
so on the first question, you'll actually be quite surprised on most vehicles. There's normally a good chunk of space above your windscreen wiper. And the windscreen wiper is often an arc. So if the very top is too close, that arc will be going down. So you can move the camera left a bit on the passenger side to make sure you've got that space. We've never come across a vehicle where you can't put a dash cam in there safely.
Small sports car.
Small sports cars are fine, yeah.
Okay,
No, but feel free to have it. Yeah, the map is something that you get on our software. So the video is recorded itself onto the dash cam, but at the same time, the dash cam records GPS data. So that video and data is saved onto the SD card, and then if you download our software, which is free on our website, people can grab it now if they wish to, then and play back a next-based video through that software, the map will pop up automatically on your PC or a Mac. Just a little note there, it would have to be from a model 322 and upwards to the middle of the range, and that's where the GPS comes in.
And this is a question actually from someone who is watching us. This week we're supporting Project Edward and its work to make every day without a road death. Is there anything you would like to say to people to help us achieve that?
Yeah, I think it would be road awareness. What I noticed, even myself, is when I put a dash cam into my car, you become more aware of other road users, and you become more aware that other road users might make a mistake. And if you drive just that little bit more conservatively with that slight change of mindset, then I think that can make a significant difference in road safety. Too many people we see going around thinking that they own the roads, and nothing will happen to them. And if we can make that mindset change in enough people, then that's going to make a big difference.
Kira, would you like to add anything to what Bryn has just said?
Yeah, I mean, just that, you know, use the roads like you respect the human life around you. I think that's the main thing. We sort of take it for granted that we can just use the roads how we like. But if you really think about everyone that's around you, the 360 degrees all around you. My husband used to say, I mean, he was a phenomenal cyclist. He didn't actually use his motorbike very much. And he taught me to ride a road bike. And he used to say something like, you need to ride like danger is just around the corner. And so he was always hyper alert. And I think that's it. It's just having that awareness and not treating sort of driving as something where we can just zone out and think about ourselves. It's about actually thinking about those around us as well.
Thank you. Rob, I'm going to hand back to you because I think while we've been talking, you've been getting some more questions coming in, haven't you?
Yes, lots are coming in for us. So we're not going to be able to answer all of them. And so I'm going to skip through quite a few here. We've answered a few. Someone's put this and I can quickly say, so how do motorcycle cameras work? Mine has no power socket. I can probably answer that quickly. They've all got an internal battery, don't they? I think, Bryn, they've got things like GoPros often people use, which have an internal battery that works with that. So that's why we see the cyclists and the motorcyclists using those. Right, let's have a quick look through some more. Can you, sorry, quickly having a look through some of these. Says cyclists can easily create situations. You could not determine how accurate a decision could be made based off what the cyclist is doing. Okay, that's obviously someone's particular opinion. Let's have a look. So another question is, do you need, often you've got a camera facing out to the front, you know, but sometimes we're talking about cameras. Do we have to have a separate cameras, or does the same camera show to the back as well? Or do you need two cameras, one at the front, one at the back? What's best?
I mean, best is having two cameras. Obviously, you've got a view all around you almost. But I would say probably 50% of people buy a single camera only. But we have cameras that can clip into the front camera to look backwards, and also cameras that can connect to that front camera with a cable, and the rear camera is physically in the back window. Personally, for me, I would say if you're getting a camera to go in that back window or to look backwards, then it is better to have the camera physically in that rear window, simply because it's closer to where the action is happening. You don't have to look through the car and out the back window.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And another one, what if the registration of the offending vehicle is not clear, but I've made a note of it? Well, I could probably answer that as a police officer, because you're a witness again. You've written down, as long as you prove that you've written down maybe the piece of paper as evidence, you would provide that at the same time with the footage. That would be sufficient for the police to deal with. Another question, probably back to you, Bryn, really, is obviously sometimes you driving along, and I ride a motorbike myself, and sometimes people see people with dash cams, and you can see the little footage playing of what's being brought out of it. Is that illegal or not, or is that because it could be a distraction, surely?
Yeah, on the Nextbase dash cams we have a screensaver mode. So whilst there is a screen there, we say the screen is there for playback and setting up the camera, and then when you're driving, it will drop into screensaver mode, so it's black. Okay,
great. Now, obviously, Bryn, Nextbase has done a fantastic job of trying to get this police reporting system and the portal that you've created for police to use national, and that's been fantastic. But there are some places, like someone's mentioning in Scotland, for example, where that's not happening. Is there anything that we can do to encourage other police forces that aren't currently using this to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I would ask anybody in an area who's not using a dashcam reporting system to get in contact with their police force. Ask them to get in contact with Nextbase. It's been a long 3 years worth of work for myself and the team here, but we truly believe in it. This is something that can change road safety. This is something that everybody can play their part in, and it's not an expensive thing. It's not something that government has to invest millions in. It's not something that's difficult for the police to do, in theory. And it's, yeah, so it's something we'd be really keen to help.
Well, thank you. I think that wraps us up for questions, Val. So back to you.
I'm sure you've got loads more, Rob. Kira and Bryn, thank you so much for answering those. I can think of lots more I'd like to ask as well. And it very sadly brings us to the end of our webinar today. Now, I don't know what you thought about dash cams at the beginning of this event, but I wonder if everything that we've told you about in the last 90 minutes has given you quite a lot to think about. Certainly, I know that I'm going to go out and order one. So I think, Bryn, I will be in touch with you soon. Rob, in a moment, is going to tell you how you can access this webinar to look at it again, if you'd like to. And he's also going to tell you about tomorrow's event, which is going to look at diabetes and eyesight, and how that can affect your driving, which is incredibly important. So thank you all very much indeed for joining us today. If you're out and about and driving, please do stay safe. Rob, back to you.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you to all of you. Yes, we've had a great day here. Wonderful. Lots of webinars we've been running this week. So this is just one. Like I said, this is the 5 out of the 6 that we've been running. And if you missed some or want to watch this one again, then they're all going to be downloaded onto our website. That's olderdriversforum.com. Just visit the webinars page and you'll find them all on there. So you can watch them, stop them, and play them how you, or share them with whoever you wish. So we'd love you to do that. Tomorrow's one, as Val said, is going to be about eyesight and diabetes and understanding that. That is a really important factor. Eyesight's so important for us when we're driving. We all need to be able to see the hazards ahead. So we have an optician talking all about that. And diabetes is unfortunately something which is growing in the population and really can affect sometimes our driving. So it's important to hear from an expert about what we can do to reduce the difficulties that diabetes sometimes can have in our driving. So I'd like to say thank you very much to you all. Thank you to Valerie for hosting this wonderful event. We really are privileged to have you with us. And Valerie's done so much for GEM Motoring Assist and driving safely for the older age group. So I really appreciate your help with this, Valerie. And thank you to Kira, and thank you very much to Bryn. So I'm just going to end our recording and I'll have to say goodbye.